Hey, my name is Leanne, and I'm fascinated with helping women navigate how to eat, move, and care for their bodies. This has taken me on a journey from vegan, keto, high protein to everything in between. I'm a small town holistic nutritionist turned 3-time international bestselling author turned functional medicine practitioner, offering telemedicine services around the globe to women looking to better their health and stop second-guessing themselves. I'm here to teach you how to wade through the wellness noise to get to the good stuff that'll help you achieve your goals. Whether you're seeking relief from chronic ailments, striving for peak performance, or simply eager to live a more vibrant life, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable advice and inspiration. Together, we'll uncover the interconnectedness of nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, and mindset, empowering you to make informed choices that support your unique health journey. Think of it as quality time with your bestie mixed with a little med school so you're empowered at your next doctor visit. Get ready to be challenged and encouraged while you learn about your body and how to care for it healthfully. Join me as we embrace vitality, reclaim our innate potential, and discover what it truly means to pursue healthfulness. Hello and welcome back. I'm glad that we get to hang out today. Oh man, these last months have been pretty insane over here. I am sitting on my bed, which is now on the floor, just a little mattress on the floor, because our dog Coconut has a herniated disc and can't get on and off furniture, and she's on complete bed rest. So I have been working from the bed for over a month, just hanging out with her and keeping her chill. So we are all just hanging out, speaking really softly, having a nice time. And today we're going to be talking about labs, blood work. I love this topic. You know, I got to stop saying that because every single episode, I'm like, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I super really absolutely love the direction that the podcast has taken, where I have very, very minimal guests. And every week I just decide what I want to talk about and I share that with you. We have a couple really fun episodes planned out, and I'm so glad to get into August to kind of go through some of the ideas that I've had, including a nicotine episode. I've been getting a lot of questions about using nicotine as a nootropic, and I want to get into it. But today we are talking about blood work and an epic resource that I've put together for you. I'm really, really proud of it. It's absolutely free. When you go to healthfulpursuit.com/labs, I'm going to include this link in the show notes. You're going to get a full guide on how to connect your symptoms to your blood work, the markers to ask your practitioner for. And if you're getting nowhere with that, there's also links where you can order your own blood work through LabCorp. It's available to anyone in the United States, but it is excluding New York, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. Also in the document, I've shown you how to prep for blood work because let me tell you, we are checking the cells, right? Like blood work is a sample of what the cells are doing. We need to make sure that the cells are properly hydrated, that the cells are properly fasted, and we are comparing apples to apples, meaning every time you prep for blood work, it is the exact same thing that you are doing in preparation. I go through all the details there so you can really lock and load this and get it going. And then last but certainly not least, we're going to be talking about how to connect common patterns in your blood work with what's going on with your body. So we get into that a little bit in the document, though it is far more epic when you're kind of going through it page by page. Okay, so today I kind of wanted to hone in on like liver stuff within blood work. I think I'm going to call this episode like inflammation and liver health because there are such great markers that we can use for understanding our liver in standard blood work. Now, I'm not talking about like these crazy reports and expensive tests that we need to go through. So we can see a slight liver imbalance. We can see a more severe imbalance. We can see inflammation quite clearly. Okay, so these are common patterns. Now, if you haven't listened to any of my blood work episodes in the past, what we're doing with functional blood chemistry is we are looking at patterns of multiple markers and how they feed into a pattern. So for example, the inflammation pattern, which is a pretty basic pattern, this is a really good one to go through, is basically a high CRP, high SED rate, high homocysteine, high basophils, elevated immunoglobulin A, immunoglobulin G, Ceruloplasmin, if it's elevated, that could be a sign of inflammation. Gastrin, when it's elevated, and even an IgM, so immunoglobulin M, can be low. That completes an inflammatory pattern. So when we're talking about these patterns, it's not just you have elevated CRP, you have inflammation. No, we want to see the full picture. We want to understand everything that's happening, everything. So go ahead and grab that lab decoder so you can kind of follow along and start to understand what we're talking about here. And if you want to go deeper, I have a really simple course on fully understanding your blood work. When I discovered functional blood chemistry and understanding these patterns and looking at our blood work in a different way, let me tell you, my practice changed. The approach to my own health changed. I had a brand new direction. I'm so thankful for that because as a practitioner, it's equipped me. The amount of growth and understanding of biology that I went on when I found functional blood chemistry was just incredible. And as a practitioner, I understand that you might have zero interest in being practitioner level, but you should have 100% interest in understanding your own blood work. In fact, I was having a conversation with a client yesterday, and we've been tracking a couple patterns in her body, and she's currently undergoing some treatments. And I just said, I see a kidney pattern here. I think it's the medication that you're taking. I can't advise on your medication, but I think you really, really need to talk to your doctor about this. Don't wait until they've flagged it, because then usually it's in the disease process. We want to flag this now as the treatment that we're doing. We're going down the wrong road. What are we doing now to stop that from progressing? And unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, this is what we all have to do because we cannot trust anyone to have our backs at all. So I want to specifically hone in on the inflammation side of things. So let's just talk about the invisible inflammation that builds up over time, because I think a lot of us think of inflammation as I ache, therefore I am inflamed. But tiredness, foggy, moody, bloated, all of this can be part of inflammation. So when I speak on inflammation, I talk kind of about the inflammatory pattern, and we're not going to get into the full pattern and all the markers and what they mean. But two key markers that are very simple to look at are CRP and homocysteine. So CRP is C-reactive protein. This is one of the best markers that we have to measure systemic inflammation. So it doesn't tell us exactly where the inflammation is coming from, but because blood work is a test of the cells and how they're functioning, we can see that there's inflammation systemically throughout the body with the CRP. Now, CRP is a level of IL-6 mediated inflammation. And so if you have inflammation in other sources, it won't necessarily come up in the CRP. And that's why a complete inflammatory pattern and understanding is best, because just because the CRP is normal doesn't mean you're not inflamed. It's just if the inflammation is not triggered by IL-6, you won't see it in the CRP. And so that's why it's important to do other markers. It's the same thing like we talked about with the thyroid previously. In many episodes, I've talked about why it's important to do a full panel, because you might have normal T4, but your T3 might be super low, and it's super important to understand the big picture. So generally speaking, a CRP above 1 milligram per liter, even though technically it's considered normal, right, to diagnostic standards, this often points to hidden inflammation. So that might be from mold exposure or a gut imbalance or overtraining or poor sleep or blood sugar swings or even chronic stress. Oftentimes when the CRP is around 3 to 10, generally that's a metabolic inflammation process, usually due to food choices, blood sugar dysregulation. When we get into the higher amounts, we're thinking more like viral, bacterial, those sorts of things. And this marker coincides really well to elevated blood pressure due to gut infection. So I love kind of tracking that throughout the process with my clients. So I've had many women come to me and say, I'm doing everything right, but I feel puffy and tired and inflamed, especially around my face and my belly. And we run their labs and boom, like CRP is elevated, homocysteine is elevated, their immunoglobulins are elevated. You get the idea. Like it's a mess. So we need to think of inflammation systemically. We need to think of inflammation as not just being aches and pains. And we need to understand that inflammation, even if you run just a CRP, we also need to look at the SED rate and the homocysteine and the basophils, et cetera. So speaking of homocysteine is a byproduct of methylation. Basically, methylation is your body's process for detoxing. It helps with brain health, hormone metabolism, and so much more. So it should be like in the Goldilocks zone, like not too high, not too low, just right. So if your homocysteine is elevated, now I'm going to be talking about functional elevations. I do not care what disease state number is on the blood work because the ranges there are often way out of touch with reality of waiting for disease states to lock in. So when it's elevated beyond like 7.5, I'm like, we have to get on this. So fun story. We had just moved into the RV full time. I had no idea about blood work. I had no idea. And we traveled to the United States where we got blood work because where we're from in Canada, it's excruciatingly, painfully, terribly hard to get blood work. Even any sort of comprehensive panel doesn't exist. So, I mean, it exists, but because it's free healthcare, you get the bare minimum. And so when we went to the United States on a trip, the first thing we did was go to LabCorp and get blood work. And we pulled my husband's homocysteine and it was like 27 or something. I'm like, I have no idea what this is. And I'm researching. And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. What is a homocysteine? And so we hired this practitioner to help us go through the blood work because we had no idea. And she said that the homocysteine was because Kevin drank too much coffee. So we removed the coffee and then tested again. It was still like 26, 27. And we're like, what the heck? So that was another motivator for me to be like, okay, well, nobody knows what this is. So I'm just going to figure it out. And for Kevin, it was a mercury toxicity issue. He actually had a tattoo. They had done fillings on him when he was really young, like young child, maybe between the ages of 10 and 18 perhaps, and he had a bunch of mercury fillings. Well, a little tiny itty bitty bit of mercury was on the outside of the tooth, kind of up against the gums. And when I realized that homocysteine elevation is a huge trigger for, or rather a sign of inflammation, I started researching like what could be going on, what's happening here. So elevated homocysteine can oftentimes be a sign of heavy metal toxicity, which causes a B12 deficiency. It just blows through your B12. It blows through all of your minerals, including magnesium. And so we detoxed him. We got all of the fillings out. Then we detoxed him like crazy. I didn't even touch the B12 yet. I did not touch it. We detoxed for probably 2 years. And then kept checking his homocysteine, and every 4 to 6 months it was lowering. We got it down to around, I think it was like 11 when I finally said, okay, let's bring in methylation, like mega support. And now he's consistently perfectly on the money, hasn't changed in years. It is wonderful. So homocysteine is a fabulous marker. I think it needs to be on every lab at least once a year to kind of see how you're doing. So high homocysteine often means that you're not recycling your B12, your folate, or your B6 efficiently. And so that could be a genetic issue like MTHFR, or it could be due to nutrient deficiencies, stress, alcohol, and or heavy metals. So get this, elevated homocysteine is also connected to mood issues. So anxiety, depression, hormone imbalances, Even sluggish metabolism has been linked to elevated homocysteine. And so how do we lower the homocysteine? We ask ourselves, okay, is this heavy metals? Is this a B12 and folate deficiency? So if your body can't methylate well, it can't detox well. So it's kind of like this dangerous loop, this ongoing thing of like, in the case of Kevin, he had mercury, in his mouth, and that probably continued to create the inflammation, which then continued to blow through the B12, and then the B12 was low, therefore he couldn't detox. And so you're just like holding on to inflammation. It's not pleasant. So CRP and homocysteine might be the two simplest markers in your blood work, and they often get ignored, not ran, kind of just like whatever. And yeah, they could totally explain why your body feels off. Next, I want to talk about blood sugar just a little bit, because inflammation will influence how blood sugar displays so often. I wish I could go back in time to when I was writing my ketogenic books and connecting with so many ketogenic influences, like individuals one-on-one and book tours and all the things, and talk more about the inflammatory process that's taking place when we're looking at blood sugar dysregulation. Like, one of the most common issues that I see is ladies who are eating a low carb diet or trying to get a handle on their glucose, and no matter what they do, the glucose just doesn't respond well. And now I know that that's often driven by inflammation. And so when you're looking at glucose, you want to keep the level like around 70, 85-ish, 70 to 85, 89-ish, and just knowing your body and kind of where you stand. But let's say that you're consistently running at like 98, 97, 99, maybe even 100. Please test your fasting insulin and look at your triglyceride to HDL ratio, because insulin is a hormone that helps shuttle the glucose out of your blood into your cells, and your cells stop listening to insulin when your body's just pumping out so much of it. So if your insulin is regular, but your glucose is elevated, that's a really good sign that it's more of an inflammatory process. Not always, but often enough that I can say that. And then if you look at your triglyceride to HDL ratio, you take your triglycerides and you divide them by your HDL. And if the result is over 2, that's a sign that you're headed toward insulin resistance. Oftentimes, this is because your triglycerides are high. Oftentimes, because triglycerides will actually be high because you don't have enough B12. They can also be high because you're eating trash food for your body. Like, trash food is going to be different for me than it is for you. Like, I know that if I eat too many grains, I don't eat a lot of grains because they just don't make me feel good. But you might thrive on grains. You might love them. And so grains to me is kind of a trash food because it's not good for me. But potatoes, man, I can eat potatoes anyway. Fries, chips, roasted, baked, boiled, mashed, and I feel great. So you might not. So it's important to understand that glucose is not always the be all end all, and glucose will be elevated due to inflammation. So you need to look at the whole picture, because blood sugar is a hormonal process. It's not just about the carbohydrates. If a client comes to me and their triglycerides are elevated, their glucose is elevated, their insulin is elevated, their ferritin is elevated, then it's like, okay, we need to overhaul your diet. But if their triglycerides are fine, their glucose is elevated, their insulin is fine, I'm going to say, nah, there's probably inflammation happening here that's driving this. So then it becomes, what's causing the inflammation? Oftentimes, I would say more often than not, it's a gut infection. Yeah, it's a gut infection, and the inflammation is blown through minerals. So then it's a mineral imbalance. We have to correct the minerals and correct the infection. Quick check-in. Are you still chasing that leaner look or steadier mojo, but nothing is sticking? The fix may be simpler than you think. The Muscle and Metabolic Collection pairs 2 bioactive precision peptide formulas that speak your body's language and increase their effectiveness with an electrolyte blend that's unlike anything else on the market today. Faster muscle repair, tame insulin spikes, deep cellular hydration. Clients say that they feel the shift in just a couple of weeks, and I have oodles of clients client testimonials to prove it. Through July 31st, save $50 on your first peptide collection, and you don't have to pay shipping. Plus, subscribers get an exclusive seat in my August live masterclass on calculating personalized macros and a ticket into a draw for 3 months of free coaching with me. Imagine a fall wardrobe that fits better because you acted right now. You can go to leannevogel.com/make or tap the bioactive peptides link in the show notes. Scroll down, choose the muscle and metabolic collection, set up a subscription, and when you go through checkout, use the code SUMMER25 for the discount. That's going to give you a full $50 off plus entry into the live masterclass, plus entry into a chance to win coaching with me. Then you can expect a text from my personal number where we'll stay connected, and I'll share the call details with you in August. Again, that's leannevogel.com/make. Okay, liver. I said we were going to talk about liver, and I haven't even gotten to the liver yet. Oh my goodness. So let's talk about the liver. This is where I see so many protocols overlooking, and it's something that I still struggle with. Like, I don't care for my liver as much as I probably should, and I'm just like busy and I don't prioritize it. And every time I do an episode on the liver, I get convicted, and then I'm like, okay, I have to put my castor oil pack on. Like, it's not even that hard. I could be sitting here with castor oil on me, and I just didn't even. So most people think of liver health and immediately assume like, just don't drink, but it's so much more than that. It is the most important organ for detox. It's the most important organ for hormone clearance and blood sugar balance and thyroid function. Did you know that your thyroid hormones convert in your liver and your gut, but also your liver? So like if your liver is sideways, maybe you're dealing with fatty liver, of course your thyroid's going to be totally messed up. And then we're wondering why we can't lose weight when we're dealing with these issues. And it's like, well, if your metabolism is not balanced because your thyroid's a mess, because your liver's not your liver's not converting thyroid hormones, and your metabolism is then messed up, like what do we expect, right? So the 3 markers that I look at most for liver dysfunction are going to be your ALT, your AST, your GGT, and like bilirubin. I use that quite often as well. So technically these are liver enzymes, and they rise when your liver is under stress. They'll also rise when you're on hepatic stimulating supplements. So like TUDCA or milk thistle will do this, where, you start a round of TUDCA and you're like, wait a minute, my AST ALT is so high. I remember personally doing TUDCA for the first time. I'd never even heard about a TUDCA and I was like, yeah, it can't be that bad. I'll just do it. My liver enzymes went from normal to like 60s in a very short period of time. And so they will trigger enzyme reaction. Most conventional doctors will not blink unless the AST ALT is crazy high. Like I've had clients with 80 plus, and their doctor's like, yeah, just don't drink alcohol. Okay, that's like really, really high. So let's start with understanding the ALT and AST. So these are enzymes that your liver releases when it's irritated. So this can be from inflammation, poor bile flow, blood sugar imbalance, toxin overload, or like when you're detoxing it, sometimes it can go up. So even if they're under 40, which is oftentimes like the general lab cutoff, I get curious when I see them above 20. Like 20 is like my ding, ding, ding. Okay, what's going on here? Because that's often a sign that your liver is working too hard to keep up and like what you're doing isn't working. Okay, and then there's GGT. This is, I love this marker. So GGT helps recycle glutathione, which is your body's master antioxidant. And when GGT is elevated, it often means that your body is depleted and overwhelmed by detox demands. So this can be mold, chemicals, heavy metals, estrogen overload. Even a supplement protocol that's too aggressive will show up on GGT. So I've had clients come to me with, okay, a lot of people don't actually do this marker at all, but I've had clients come to me in the 50s, 60s, etc. Oftentimes the cutoff where a doctor's going to say, okay, like this is pretty bad, you need to work on it, is like 250 to 300, because at that level, then they're going to say that you have pancreatitis. But that's not what we're working for. What we want to look at is just, if the GGT is slightly elevated, I would say beyond 20, just like the other markers, then my question is there mold? That's my first thought, is like, what's going on here? It could be mold. And oftentimes glutathione is a great resource for that elevation. So here's why all of this piece matters with the liver overload. So when your liver is backed up, estrogen does not get cleared. When estrogen is elevated or dominant to progesterone, you're going to deal with mood swings, weight gain, water retention, PMS, breast tenderness, headaches. I'm currently experiencing like a tiny bit of this because practitioner honesty time. I haven't been focusing too much on my liver, and I've, with our dog being sick and just everything that's gone on and just everything, I just have not even prioritized it a little bit. And I'm noticing a couple of days before my cycle, I get a little bit short fused and I'm quicker to anger than I would like. I'm definitely experiencing breast tenderness, and it's very slight. And that's the thing about this stuff. It's not like overnight, all of a sudden you're dealing with these issues. It's like slight, like every cycle is just a tiny bit worse, maybe 1 to 5% worse. And then over a year, you're like, whoa, actually that's terrible. Like I did not have this last year. And so then it's a matter of, okay, generally speaking, that's going to be a liver issue. And when your liver is sluggish, histamine is going to back up. It's interesting. I've noticed a lot of women around the age of 55, 60 start dealing with a significant amount of histamine issues. So histamine and estrogen are super tied together, and histamine and estrogen will cause a lot of skin issues, rashes, bloating, wired but tired feelings. But what I see a lot of the times is women being very puffy on the face, almost like they have a mild allergy reaction. And it's a liver issue. So when your liver is burdened, your whole metabolism slows down because the thyroid hormones are converted in the liver, and you get more reactive, less resilient, and minor triggers just knock you off your game. And let me tell you, it is not pleasant. I think you know what I'm talking about. So the solution is not just drink less alcohol and stop eating junk food. It's a lot more than that. Like, we need to start thinking about, how many supplements are we on? Are they good quality? What is our mold exposure situation like? Are we dealing with gut imbalances? What medications are we on? What hormones do we need to support? How much stress are we under? Are we causing or forcing really fast weight loss? So we'll get into kind of next steps and what to do with all this information. But even when you're in your 30s, this information needs to be like top of mind. Like, the liver is not a sexy organ, but it is so important. I hear a lot of people talk about the thyroid. And yes, the thyroid is so important, but nobody really talks about the liver, and the liver is awesome. So sometimes supporting the liver could be bringing in glycine or bitters or taurine, or eating beets and arugula and lemon water and sulfur-rich vegetables. So think of your liver as being in a bottleneck with your metabolism. It's really like, without the liver functioning properly, your metabolism isn't going to function properly. So if your metabolic health is important to you, then your liver needs to be important to you. So let's kind of talk about another case study, because I really love case studies. It kind of brings it home. Let's call this client like Sarah. She's 47 years old. Yeah, she's 47. Perimenopause has hit her. Like, she's right in the depths of it. She's super high achieving, eats clean, walks daily, strength trains like 3 times a week. And she came to me saying, like, I don't understand. I'm doing everything right, but my weight keeps creeping up. I feel inflamed in the morning. She was talking about crashing in the afternoon around 3:00. She doesn't enjoy her coffee. Like, she's feeling anxious all the time. She's getting the jitters. Like, this is not normal for her. So we did some blood work, which I love, because without it, I have no idea what's going on with you. I don't know. I can just randomly guess and see what sticks. But CRP was 2.8, Fasting insulin was 12. Okay. Glucose was 96. Her triglyceride to HDL ratio was 3.1. Her AST and ALT were both in the low 30s. And her GGT was 44. Okay. So kind of going through what we've talked about, that CRP at 2.8, that means her immune system is in an ongoing inflammatory situation. Okay. It's not high by conventional standards, but it's functionally elevated and I don't like it. Then that fasting insulin at 12 and glucose at 96, like technically this is normal, but together they have a very clear story of slight insulin resistance, and which doesn't make sense to you, right? Because if she's moving every day and she's lifting weights, like how could she possibly have insulin resistance? The triglyceride to HDL ratio was 3.1. So this is a big red flag for poor metabolic flexibility. And the ALT, AST, again, it's not flagged, but it's a sign that the liver was overwhelmed. And GGT at 44, that's a pretty high level. Like this is a major clue that the glutathione system is depleted and the liver is under a significant amount of oxidative stress. So she was inflamed. What can we take from this? Okay. She was inflamed. Her blood sugar is swinging. Her liver is overloaded. And the worst part is that she thought that she was the problem, right? Like she kept asking, am I not trying hard enough? Should I cut more carbs? Should I fast longer? Should I incorporate 24-hour fasts? And no. In those instances, and I'm sharing this because I literally meet with clients Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and have been for 17 years. It's not a matter of trying harder. It's about supporting the body better. So swapping fasting for protein-rich morning meals, adding daily minerals to support bioflow and glutathione, like glycine, magnesium, lemon water, liver herbs, castor oil packs, looking at strength and like what workouts are we doing and how are we putting a goal toward glucose depletion or like what's our goal. And in this instant, let me tell you, the fit peptide I used no problem there because it's going to help modulate inflammation, improve metabolic efficiency, and ease the burden on her liver like very fast. And I'm all about, look, I think that supplements are fantastic, but if we're relying 100% on supplements to make 100% of the change, it's just not going to happen. They're part of the pie and it's an important part, but if you're not doing anything else, they're not going to be as effective. So if she were to just do one supplement, I could see it working for a little while and her feeling better. But if we're not looking at the other pieces and the aspects, that's a problem. So we made these changes and within 6 weeks, her energy stabilized, her rings fit better. And she told me, I don't feel like I'm fighting my body anymore, because that's like when we come up with these new plans and we're like, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it. This is the one. And then it's just like we're fighting ourselves the whole time. And this is really why I do what I do, because women like Sarah are everywhere, like everywhere. I don't know who said it. Maybe it was like Tipping Point book or something like that. You know, my husband, Kevin, is always reading all these books and telling me all these things. I don't have time to read other books other than nutrition books. We said something like 10,000 hours is where we hit mastery. And I don't know. I feel like at 17 years, I have to be above 10,000 hours, right? Like I see this all the time. High performing, deeply committed, but stuck, confused, and dismissed over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And it sucks. And that's why I'm here. That's why the podcast continues on, even though I don't really, do I even? I try not to pay attention. I don't think I have any actual podcast partners anymore. Like I truly just make this because I love doing it. So, hey, here we are. Okay, tools. Let's talk about tools, because I like to leave you with all the stuff, because awareness is awesome, but action is what makes everything happen. So we gotta get on it. Okay, the right labs. You're going to find all this outlined in the healthfulpursuit.com/labs resource. Go there, check out that cute background that I found. It took me forever to find it on that page. It's so cute. Even if you decide you don't want the lab decoder, you should go to healthfulpursuit.com/labs and see the background, because that I searched for that forever and it is so stinking cool. I want wallpaper in my office that is that. Anyways, so you want to ask for the right labs. The CRP, the homocysteine, the fasting insulin, the triglycerides, HDL, ALT, AST, GGT, ferritin would be another good one to ask for. So these are readily available. Like these tests themselves probably altogether are maybe $25. So if you can't get them, then download the guide and click the link and you can just order them yourself through that link. We want to look at patterns, not just numbers. So if you have a normal CRP, but your homocysteine is elevated, okay, then you look at your ESR, it's elevated. And then you look at your, let's say you ran the CBC with differential and your basophils are elevated and monocytes are elevated. Like chances are you got some inflammation there. So we got to take care of that. Starting with food and lifestyle, absolutely essential. If you want to fast, cool. That's fine. Just do it in the evening. Don't do it in the morning. When you wake up, have food. Have protein in the morning within an hour of waking. This is going to stabilize your blood sugar, reduce cortisol spikes. Walking after meals is really great. Like 5 to 10 minutes. Doesn't need to be crazy, but it's going to reduce insulin and improve glucose handling, aka better on your liver. You want to hydrate with minerals. Okay, think like trace minerals. Okay, here's another, I don't know if it's a soapbox, but I'll jump on the box anyways. A lot of ladies I'm seeing getting the reverse osmosis water systems, which are great. I love them. I personally have one. Love it so much. And then they add their electrolyte powder to it, like Element. And then they're like, yeah, I added my minerals to my water. Absolutely not. That is not what we want. We actually, in order to hydrate properly, we need trace minerals. And so that's a lot more than just sodium, potassium, magnesium. Like trace minerals include calcium, copper, and zinc, and selenium, and boron, and lithium, and iron, and manganese, and chromium, and cobalt, and molybdenum, and sulfur, and you get the idea. Like you need all of those things. And so we need to make sure that how we're hydrating and how we're giving hydration to the body can be properly absorbed. So there's this thing in blood work and it's called cellular hydration. And we can tell in blood work whether or not the cells of the body are hydrated. A very common pattern that I see in blood work today is cellular dehydration. Now, these are the ladies that walk around with their Stanley cups. Is that what they're called? Stanley? Yeah, whatever. You know what I'm talking about, those cups. I don't personally have one, obviously. So they walk around with these cups and they're drinking water and they're getting all the water in and the liquids and they're cellularly dehydrated because they're not drinking the proper water in the proper balance. So in order for water to be absorbed in the body, we need a couple of things. Trace minerals, proper electrolyte balance, plasma similar structure. So if you're just drinking reverse osmosis water, it's lacking in all of those things, right? If you're adding like a strong electrolyte, like Element to your water, reverse osmosis water, and thinking that that's going to properly cellularly hydrate, no. If you're drinking tap water, that's not going to cellularly rehydrate because there's literal chemicals in the water. And you could come at me about this, but I mean, I've tested enough tap water with clients to know that it's a real thing and a real problem. And so we need to properly cellularly rehydrate. I have one of my most favorite electrolytes. I'll include a link in the show notes. It is dangerously fantastic. Like, it's really cool. I've done a couple of trials with my own blood work, preparing for the blood work with and without electrolytes. You're going to find information about this in the lab decoder document, healthfulpursuit.com/labs, where it's important to properly cellularly rehydrate before blood work so we can tell what's going on with the cells. Because if you're not properly hydrated in the cells, it's going to be really hard for me to understand the blood work. So when I switched over to the hydrated electrolyte, oh my goodness, my cellular dehydration was so much better. And dehydration is a huge issue for overall cellular health. Like if we can tell all of this stuff that we talked about today, if we can tell that through blood work, What's going to happen if our cells aren't properly hydrated? That is not good. That is literally the basic form of your life is your cells. Got to take care of them. Have to properly hydrate them, period. Another step we want to take is reducing inflammatory oils and fats like canola, soybean, sunflower, and replace them with properly prepared olive oil, avocado oil, ghee, tallow, right? So for high temperature cooking, tallow, ghee, coconut oil, and or an avocado oil if it's processed. And then like for salads, olive oil, avocado oil, etc. And then supporting your liver, super important. And I'm speaking to myself as I say this out loud. Lemon water, arugula, beets, a little bit of milk thistle in there. So if your labs come back quote unquote normal, but you still feel totally off, I hope that this episode helped you. And if it's left you thinking like, why has nobody ever explained my labs like this before? You're not alone. Welcome to the club. Yeah, go check it out. Healthfulpursuit.com/labs. I outlined a whole bunch in there. I'm totally in the game to teach you how to do this yourself without getting totally overwhelmed. So you can just look at your blood work and understand what tweaks need to be made and then just do the tweaks and move on with your life. So you don't need to become a practitioner of your body. You just need to become an advocate. And that's what I want to help you with. Okay, I'll see you back here next week for another episode. Bye. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to the Healthful Pursuit Podcast. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of the show. If you're looking for free resources, there are a couple of places you can go. The first to my blog, healthfulpursuit.com, where you're going to find loads of recipes. The second is a free parasite protocol that I've put together for you that outlines symptoms, testing, and resources to determine whether or not you have a parasite, plus a full protocol to follow to eradicate them from your life if you need to. That's available at healthfulpursuit.com/parasites. And last but certainly not least, a full list of blood work markers to ask your doctor for so that you can get a full picture of your health. You can grab that free resource by going to healthfulpursuit.com/labs. The Healthful Pursuit Podcast, including show notes and links, provides information in respect to healthy living, recipes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, nor is it to be construed as such. We cannot guarantee that the information provided on the Healthful Pursuit Podcast reflects the most up-to-date medical research. Information is provided without any representation or warranties of any kind. Please consult a qualified health practitioner with any questions you may have regarding your health and nutrition program.